All right, programming 12. We are going to be talking about making droppable items. This is a classic type of mechanic in a role playing game where you defeat the enemy, its stuff falls out of it as it dies, and it lies on the floor, and then you go and collect it, and you can put these things to use and make them make use of them if you want to. This is classic. Everything from the old Diablo games to Skyrim, like you name it. Like all these games have sort of that aspect to them, and that's fun. It's fun to kill monsters and take their things. I'm not too sure why that is, but here we are, anyways. And so we're going to make a dropped item class, so we can make dropped items that will be in possession. The monsters will relieve themselves of these possessions, and you can take them when you collide with them. So I'm going to show you the class here, and this is kind of a base. It's definitely has much room for improvement. So I'd like you to try to make it a little bit better. I'll give you specific criteria upon which you want to make it better, but this is also like very extendable for your whatever imagination demands, whatever types of dropped items you want to make. So it's just kind of a basis for those things. So just to let you know, a dropped item is going to be a game object. So we'll just it'll be in the list, and it's going to have a couple of instance variables. And I'm not 100% sold on these necessarily being here. So we could extend dropped item and have all sorts of different things like dropped weapon, dropped money, dropped ammo, dropped all sorts of different types of things, and that would be great. Like we could definitely do that. So please feel free if that seems a little more logical. Then feel free. Right now I have sort of an int that's going to represent what type of drop item it is, and in my main tab I've just defined some types of dropped items here: ammo, money, gun. We don't have any ammo. Actually, maybe instead of money we should do like health or something that would boost our health when we collide with it. That would be a cool dropped item, like a health potion or something like that. So this would be sort of the type. I'm just going to assume it's going to be a gun right now, but I'll leave it up to you to think about how you could also make a health potion, so that when you drop it, instead of it giving you a new gun, it gives you health. So that's sort of a thing that we'll look into. Right now, this is just going to be a gun, so I'm going to just automatically set the type to gun. But maybe you want to randomize it a bit. Maybe you want to have some random numbers and choose the type that it's going to be instead of always making it a gun. So that's something we'll think about. And then I'm just going to add a shotgun into the as the dropped item. But again, if it's a gun, it might be nice to randomize what kind of gun drops, and that would be a smart thing to do. As it is, I'm just going to make this dropped item always drop a gun, and that gun will always be the shotgun. So you'll notice I have a weapon variable, and I lazily call it W, and it's going to contain a shotgun. But you could put different kinds of weapons in here: a sniper rifle, an auto pistol, you name it. You could put whatever guns you've invented inside of the dropped item, object. And then I just kind of set the basics. So it's got to have at least one hit point so that it doesn't get removed from the game. I set its location to wherever I tell it to drop, and I give it no velocity. It's not going to move anywhere. Its size, I just chose a size, and there's a magic number there. I should probably, choose what that value is and put it somewhere else, but, I'll do that later. And then the room, I just tell it where to go from the parameters. So wherever it's told to go, that's what room it'll be in. Last but not least, I have a color, and you'll notice that this color is the C is just the name. Again, kind of lazy. It's not part of this class, and it's because I added color to the game object. So if you look at my game object now, I decided that so many things had color in this game that I would just put it there and save myself some trouble. So here I have a color in addition. So now all objects have colors, and default ones are purple and so on. So you can make that change if you want. You don't have to. You could just make that an instance variable just for dropped items if you prefer. I'll leave it up to you to decide. So for my show function, I'm basically just drawing a yellow circle, or whatever color it happens to be. In this case, it's yellow. It would be nice to be able to customize it better. So if it was a gun, you see a gun. If it's a health box, you see a plus or something, like a red plus sign or something, and you name it. So right now it's fairly boring. I would say it's going to be just that way for my demonstration here. So it's going to be up to you to sort of think of a way to differentiate them, either by extending dropped item to have different kinds of items, or by just using if statements and like looking at the type, and you can have like an if statement to draw it one way if the type is gun, and draw it a different way if the type is ammo or health. So I'll leave it up to you to kind of make that decision, but that'll be something we can do. Right now it's just going to be a yellow circle. And for the X function, well, guess what? They don't do anything. They just sit there and languish, waiting for you to pick them up. You could theoretically put in some kind of like timer so that they eventually time out and they're done. If you don't pick them up, they eventually disappear. That would be a cool thing to add in here, and you'd probably have to make a little bit more instance variables and add something to the act function. So I'll leave it up to you if you want to do that. Not required, but kind of cool to do it. So if that's my dropped item class, I'm pretty much set to start dropping at least this kind of item. So what I'm going to do from my enemy is in my enemy class, and remember the enemy class is the superclass of all my enemies. So if I add this into the enemy's act function, then all enemies can do this. What I'll do is I will basically when it gets shot and when it dies with HP is less than 0, I'll make it drop an item. So right now, if I go to less than, I should say less than or equal to, honestly. If I go less than or equal to 0 hit points, then I explode right now. That's a function that I talked about in the last video that I built into the game object class. But I'm going to add some more stuff. So let's put in some braces. So in addition to exploding, I'm also going to make it so that it drops an item. So to drop an item, all I need to say is my objects dot add new dropped item. And what do I have to send it? Well, I have to send it the location of the thing that's dying. So this is in the enemy class, right? So it's the enemy that's dying. So I'll just put in location.x, location.y. And I guess I have to put the room as well. So that's going to be room x and room y. That's just the room of the enemy. So this will add a new dropped item into the world. And that's nice. There's a lot of things we can do to improve this. So oftentimes enemies don't always add a dropped item. There's a random chance. So it would be nice to make this, only add a dropped item maybe 10% of the time or 20% of the time or something. You don't want to make it too low while you're testing, but probably, have some kind of random number generation and only add it if it's, less than a certain number, and maybe make that while you're testing it a pretty high probability. And that will help you not to be frustrated waiting for an item to drop. But for now, we'll just test to see if this even drops an item. Just like it'll drop every time an enemy dies, but we'll see. So I'll start the game, and I want to just test to see if we see it. So here comes Dungeon Crawl. Woo! All right. So right now I have this weapon, and I call it the Fire Hose. This is my testing weapon. I think no player should ever have this weapon. It's just ridiculously powerful. And I'll go over here and I'll just obliterate whatever this enemy is here. Blam! And yeah, sure enough, it dropped a little gold circle. So that's my weapon. And right now it doesn't do anything. Like I can't interact with it because I haven't written any code to do so. But it did drop. So I'm excited to see that at least that part of it worked. So now that I know that they're dropping, I'm going to go and make it so I can interact with it. So I'm going to go to the hero class, and I'm going to make a bit of collision code for that. So I'm going to go to hero, and here's my collision loop. This is checking for collisions right now with enemy bullets, but I can write a similar piece of code to check for collisions with the dropped items. So I can say, hey, if my object instance of dropped item, I think that's how I called it, dropped item, yep, and is colliding with my object. So in other words, my hero is colliding with the object. So now I've written some code to say, hey, I am I've noticed that this object, because I'm processing all my objects here, right, starting with 0 and going all the way to the end. I've noticed this is a dropped item, and I've noticed that I'm colliding with it, so I'd better go, benefit from it. Now, there is a bit of a problem here that we have to resolve. You could put in some if statements to say, well, if it's a gun type, do this. But watch what happens if I try to say if my object.type equals, gun, because I know this my object is a dropped item, right? I know it. I checked it. I said my object instance of dropped item. But check what it says. It says this global variable type does not exist. And you might be like, but it's right here. It's not a global variable. It is an instance variable. And you should be able to access it that way. And normally you can, but the thing is, the problem here is that my object is, according to our source code, it's actually a game object, not a dropped item. It contains a dropped item, and so instance of dropped item is true, but as far as the code knows, it's only a mild-mannered game object, and game objects don't have a type. So there's a mismatch. There's a mismatch in that my object we know is a dropped item, but the source code doesn't know it's a dropped item. It thinks of it as just a plain old game object. So before we do anything, we're going to have to change my object. So I am going to make a new variable. And what we're going to do is we're going to do something called a casting operator. A casting operator allows you to change the type of a variable. And, it has to be a valid casting operation. So this is valid because we know it is a dropped item. We can confirm it is. So this will be valid. But, that is an important step before doing your casting. So I'm going to make a new variable. It's going to be a dropped item type. Hi. Sorry, I'm just in the middle of recording a video right now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So anyways, so for our dropped item variable, we are going to make it called, whatever you want to call it. I'll just call it item. And it's going to be equal to my object. I'm going to assign. I'm going to say, hey, this item is going to be this. But it doesn't just transfer over easily. We have to cast it. We have to confirm that we want to convert the type of this variable to dropped item. So we just do that with the word dropped item in parentheses. Dropped item. So this is called a cast. So we are casting my object to be a dropped item. And I've just given it a new name. No particular reason, but that name makes a lot more sense. So I'm going to use that. So we haven't really done anything particularly exciting. We've just taken my object. It's a dropped item, and we want to get at those things that are special about dropped items. So we've just cast it to be specifically a dropped item in both in terms of what's there and in the code as well, what its type is. So now we can refer to, instead of my object, we can refer to item, and it works, and it can see the things that are special to the dropped item class. So that's kind of annoying, hey? I'm not going to try to lie and tell you, wow, this is so great. Oh, it's not super great. But it's a thing we can solve. So if you ever make subclasses that have special variables, instance variables that you've added on top of the superclass, and you want to get at them, but their type is of the superclass, then you got to cast them. So this is called downcasting. You're casting something that's of type superclass into the subclass. So that's the technical term for it. Anyways, once you're done, you have this lovely item that is basically exactly what you want. You can check if it's a gun, and if it's a gun, we can take the weapon out of it. So I can say, this is in hero class, remember? So I can say my weapon equals item.w. That's the name of the weapon in dropped item, right? That's my lazy name. I probably should come up with a better name for that. So maybe you can write my lazy wrongs. And is that it? That's all you got to do? Yeah, that's it. And of course, we can make different if statements based on whatever type it is. And if you don't want to use type, if you want to make these like subclasses, then you can use instance of to determine what kind of thing it is. So does this work? Theoretically, if I hit, I guess I have to also destroy the power up. So I want to say, item.hp equals 0, so it clears it out. That would be good. Yeah, so I think this will work out okay. Let's find out. So I want to see if my fire hose gets replaced with the shotgun that is contained in my power-ups. Okay, so here we go. I got, just to confirm, I have fire hose. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to get that blast. Okay, so I'm currently fire hosing. I'm going to collide with the power-up. I got it. It went away. And now I'm, well, it's not a shotgun. That's like a crazy gun. But I guess that's what my shotgun is currently programmed to look like. But you saw it did change, right? So I changed my gun when I selected it. So now I can go and look around and go continue fighting enemies. Hey, a fun fact, my bullets are also enemies. So when I kill my bullets, I can actually shoot the bullets. I guess I suck at shooting bullets. I just can't shoot anything. This gun's terrible against turrets. Oh, I guess I thought I could kill a bullet. But apparently I'm not succeeding at it. Oh. Can't kill anything. I'm like dying. Come on. Oh, there we go. So yeah, I got that. I mean, it's not going to change anything. That just gives me another shotgun, and I already have the shotgun, so it's no big deal. Okay, so it works. Multiple enemies are dying, and they're all dropping power-ups. Okay, so that's the basics of making the power-up class. So what do you need to do to make your power-up, or no, not dropped item class? Sorry. Those are the basics of it. What do you need to do? So one thing I'd like you to make is sort of two different kinds of dropped items. One's going to be like the health kit that's going to restore health to your character. Your health shouldn't go above the maximum, whatever your initial maximum is or whatever it currently is. And it should look different. The classic kind of red cross would be a nice thing. So, and it should be randomly generated when the monster dies and drops the item. That could be done in the constructor, or you could do it in the enemy class, wherever you think that's appropriate. I'll leave it up to you to decide. And also, I would like you to make it so that there's a random chance of the item dropping. So they don't just always drop every time an enemy dies, but there's just a percentage chance of that happening. So generate a random number, and if it's less than whatever your percentage is, then you go ahead and create the power up, and don't create it if it's not. So that way they're not always dropping. That's sort of part of the mechanics of these types of games. Last but not least, try to give it a random gun. So it doesn't just always produce a shotgun. If it's a gun, make it a random gun that you can choose. And again, you can just use this system if you like. If you would prefer to make different kinds of item classes that extend some kind of default dropped item, that's cool too. You can make your decision on how you want to do that. Either one is really extendable, and this is just sort of the beginning of this. You can make, I kind of hinted at like an idea of having an ammo canister. Maybe we'll have armor. Maybe we'll have I don't know, whatever, gold, money. All sorts of different things we can have as types of objects to drop. So this might be one of the things that you get excited about and decide you want to explore for your own programming. Okay, so anyways, I hope you have luck with this, and let me know if I can help at all. Thanks, everybody.